flow.
Welcome to episode 160 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. We have a lot to dive into in this episode. Massive trade in the NHL recently. Mikko Rantanen traded to the Carolina Hurricanes in a package including Martin Necas. It's been a while since we've seen a deal like that, so you know we're going to have some thoughts on that trade and maybe how it affects Mitch Marner. So I promise you want to stay tuned for that conversation. The Leafs, they've lost 2 in a row, so we'll get into that as well, give you our thoughts on the way they have been playing, and then we'll also talk about the Eastern Conference playoff race. So a lot to dive into in this episode. But before we get into all that, it is time to officially welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing today, man?
Anthony Bruno. Do you want to know how I'm doing? You want to know how I'm doing, Anthony Bruno? Last night, your boy, I had one of those ultimate beer league hockey experiences. So Sunday night game, 11 p.m.
Oh, those are the worst.
Fuck, man. Like, talk about the, like, unreal. I don't know why. It's nights like that you're like, why do I still do this, right? So 11 p.m. game, get to the barn. We get absolutely fucking smashed by a team of kids like half our age. So that's all.
They're all going to bed at like 2-3 in the morning.
Yeah, they're going out after. I'm fucking doing the opposite. I'm crashing on my drive home. So we get absolutely hammered by our opponent. Bruno, a minute to go in the game. A minute to go. Puck goes to the point. Lepore challenges the defenseman. And he absolutely fucking blasts a clapper off my foot, right in the laces. Lepore goes down. And the funny thing is, like, the guy was a nice guy. As soon as it happened, he's like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was in so much pain, just like on the ice. I had to be helped off. But 11 p.m., getting hammered and taking a shot off the foot. My foot is a balloon this morning. I woke up at like 4:30 in excruciating pain. I guess the Tylenol wore off, and I went downstairs, took out the Costco broccoli to ice my foot. Tasted delicious for dinner, by the way. And it's not as bad. I think the Tylenol's kicking in, and hopefully I'll be back out there soon. But for now, IR for Mr. Lepore.
I was gonna say, I thought I would have to put you on IR for this podcast and get a replacement co-host, but Lepore gutting it out. My goodness, and just tell everyone it was like a 98-mile-an-hour slap shot off your foot. Lepore just taking an absolute bomb off the foot. He's popping Tylenols. He's putting frozen broccoli on his foot. And he is here recording the podcast.
Yeah, just for you guys. I love you.
Unbelievable. Well, listen, Lepore, you took a clapper off the foot. And the Leafs have lost 2 in a row, losing to your Ottawa Senators in their last game. What are your thoughts right now? Like, John Tavares has been out of the lineup. Obviously, Anthony Stolar still out of the lineup. Dennis Hildeby can't stop a beach ball. But then, you have Joseph Woll, who had a great performance against Ottawa, but they still lost to your Senators. So what are your thoughts right now on how the Leafs are playing?
I mean, they haven't been good. They're 5-5, I think, in their last 10. It seems like they're always on a winning streak or a losing streak. Just thank goodness there's been more winning streaks, or the winning streaks have been longer. That game against Ottawa was fucking terrible, man. Like, can they input something in the NHL where both teams lose and neither team gets a point? That was a bad game. And, the Sens fans, it's because you lost. No, guys, come on. And even the winning goal, like, you can't even be upset about that, like how ridiculous that was. But let's talk about that, Bruno. Should it have counted?
Yeah, I think it should have counted. I mean, it was a ridiculous bounce. That is the most outrageous bounce you're ever going to see. I'm not going to sit here, as maybe most Leaf fans are doing, and saying that was a shit goal that shouldn't have counted. But listen, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that being a goal.
See, me too. Like, I'm like, yeah, that's a goal. And they're like, oh, he jerked his knee, so that's a kicking motion. Yeah, you have to remember that you're watching things in slow motion. Like the guy batted it out of the air and it hit it. His knee just kind of moves like as a reaction. And people say, "Oh, that's a kicking motion." But what I don't like what is the lack of consistency, because Leafs fans remember the one that got called back. We scored against Washington when Lorenz scored. And he was point blank in front goal. He stopped it. It came firing back at him, hit him in the leg, and went towards the net and in. And they didn't count it. So my thing was, well, they should both count or both not count. And like, that's the frustrating part. But, again, and about that game, Bruno, this is a legitimate question. I'm asking a genuine question. Was that the worst game of Austin Matthews' career?
Holy cow. You
Bruno,
feel that strongly about his performance?
He got his first attempt on net in the third period. Like, he was bad, like total ghost. I don't know if he was too busy talking about where he was gonna go to dinner with Brady Tkachuk after the game, but geez, man, like geez, and he had goals in 5 straight, and then just puts up
playing really well.
Puts up that.
Listen, even though he is Austin Matthews and we've come to expect greatness from him every night, I feel like there's been more of those games this season where he's kind of just invisible. And maybe it's been because of the injuries that he's been dealing with. So I'm willing to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but that's been frustrating this year. And I talked about this on the last podcast. Like, and again, I know he's been on a heater leading up to that game, but if there's something lingering there with him, which it seems like there has been all season because he hasn't been his usual dominant self, I'm still a little bit concerned. I'm not going to go ahead and say that was the worst game he's ever played. But I feel like he's had a lot more of those games this season where it's like, shit, this guy did not generate anything. He was kind of invisible out there. But in saying that, he's probably going to go and score like 7 goals over his next 6 games or something.
Yeah, I looked it up. I think he's got like points in 18 of his last 20 games. So, but it's like he knew he was playing the Sens and the beating Lepore would take, and he wanted to screw me because everyone was just like raining on the parade. Jeez, man. Jeez.
Were you at the game, by the way?
No, I wasn't able to go.
I had a feeling I didn't text you that night, but I had a feeling that you might have been there.
Well, I might have been there.
Okay. You weren't there sitting front row as you usually do for Leaf Senators?
Oh, yeah. You know me, right? No, that's only in Toronto, Bruno. Front row in Toronto. Right. It's not worth it in Ottawa. It's a quarter of the price, but it's not worth it. But yeah, just the timing didn't work out. Like the kids were on the ice and whatever, and I would have had to like race there and whatever. I mean, I'll save my money for when I get to go to playoff games.
Yeah, Leaf Senators in the playoffs. Save it for that.
Yeah. I don't even want to talk about that. Did you see what happened with the Sens today with that whole Twitter thing?
I did not actually.
Really?
I've been living under a rock today.
Things are heated in Ottawa, man. So it was announced that the Sens next season would be playing 2 exhibition games in Quebec City, one against the Habs and one against the Devils. Okay. So, kind of like a cool little thing to do. What I'm surprised with from the NHL is why Colorado's not playing. Like, have one of them against Colorado. Maybe they wear their
that's reverse, a no-brainer.
Yeah, the reverse retro.
But not for the NHL.
Yeah, well, for them, Jesus. So it was announced the Sens were going to play 2 exhibition games next season in Quebec City. Bruce Garriock, Sens reporter, he's been around forever. Andlauer was on the podium, and he asked him, is there any possibility of this team relocating to Quebec City? Because that's where people were like, why are we playing these games away? Is this like a tester? And whether that's a fair take or not, it's still that thing of, why us? Like, why not Montreal? And maybe Montreal said, fuck you. We're not going to give up our gate revenues, even in an exhibition game. But who knows? Either way, Garriock asked the question. Andlauer squashed it as an owner would, whether there is truth to it or not. He just squashed it saying, like Quebec deserves a team, but we're not relocating there. Ottawa Senators Twitter today. And it was one of those things where I saw it and I thought it may have been like a fake account. Like someone changed a letter and and posted this to troll people. But no, it was the official Ottawa Senators account. And it's since been deleted. I noticed actually a couple hours ago it was deleted. It was a picture of Spartacat, and he was wearing a half Sens, half Quebec Nordiques jersey. So Sens fans are like, what the fuck is that?
That's bizarre.
Very, very weird. And, you try to get inside people's brains with this. It's like, okay, obviously it wasn't a good call to post that with the anxiety Sens fans have about that topic. Melnyk threatened it. Rod Brydon previously was in bankruptcy and said the team's got to relocate to survive. So it is sensitive for Sens fans. And then for them to post that, and is it just a matter, and Bruno, like you worked in the industry, of it was just kind of embrace those exhibition games, and it's some Algonquin college student running the social media for the Ottawa Senators as like an intern, and he wasn't thinking, and he did that. Like he thought it was funny, or he thought it was cool. Like I think that might be it, and then everyone's blowing this thing out of proportion. But like I will say it, man. Ian Mendes, who's the head of communications for the Sens, had to tweet out, anyone can DM me and I will move questions upwards. And then Cyril Leader immediately was on 1200 a little later in the day, the president of the team. And then it was a story on the local news, how people were flipping out at this. So not cool, man. Not cool. And here's the Sens. They're in third place in the division. Nice little winning streak on the weekend. Slap right in the face. This is what we got to fucking deal with. Oh, Ottawa.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for it to go out though on their official account, it's not like there's just like teenagers running these accounts or interns.
Okay.
Like they have like legit people who are running these accounts who have experience. Like a team like, a professional sports team, especially in the big four sports, I don't think would just hire some nobody to run their account.
Yeah, but Bruno, you said a professional sports team. We're talking about the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have to do it.
Questionable professional sports team.
Yeah,
the Ottawa Senators. So this thing, I don't think it was just a matter of like some young new guy on the job, just like, you know what, I'm going to tweet this out. This probably had to get approved by someone even more senior. Yeah, that's a disaster, man. That's a bad look. Holy cow.
What is the process again? Like you worked in the industry of a tweet actually getting out. Like it's one guy, two guys, or there's like a chain of command. There's like a ladder. If you're at the top of the ladder, it goes right out.
It depends how the organization has it set up. But typically you'll have like a manager who kind of like will oversee a lot of, let's say, the social media posts that get sent out, and they have to get approved usually before they're sent out. I would say something like that, especially, coming off the news about the Sens playing these preseason games. Like I feel like something like that would probably, really anything they tweet out would probably have to go through some sort of approval by somebody. So someone must have greenlit that and said, yep, go ahead, let's post that. So yeah, not a great look.
It's hilarious. The reactions are hilarious. I like the rage though, Sens fans. I like the rage. Get mad at your team. Be like Leaf fans. Hate your team once in a while. Never
a dull moment with these Ottawa Senators.
It's fun, man. Fucking fun.
It's time for a quick break for a word about Manscaped. It's 2025, gentlemen. This is the year to stop looking like crap. This is the year to finally take care of yourself. And the way that you're going to do that is by going to manscaped.com and buying the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. It is time to look good, feel good, and play good. Pick up the Lawnmower 5.0, the Weed Whacker. There are so many other amazing products, the Boxers. Everything that Manscaped does, I promise you, will either make you look better or feel better. And in turn, as I mentioned, you will play better. So go to manscaped.com and use our exclusive promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. Lepore, Manscaped never disappoints.
Nope, they do not. And people hear me say all the time, go to manscaped.com, throw some items in your cart. Well, they've made it easy. We have the Performance Package 5.0. You only have to have one product in your cart to have a great start with Manscaped products. The best of the best. Don't fuck around, boys. Don't hesitate. Manscaped.com, 20% off with GFP 20 and free shipping. And you will not be disappointed with this package. It is undefeated, in my opinion.
Take care of yourselves in 2025, gentlemen. Go to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using our exclusive code GFP20. That is code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. All right, let's move on to the biggest news of the last few days, and that is the massive trade between the
Oh,
Avalanche and the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't even want to mention the Chicago Blackhawks in this trade because I just don't care.
yeah.
Obviously, the centerpiece of this deal is Mikko Rantanen, Stanley Cup champion, one of the best, let's call it 15 to 20 players in the world. You could argue he's even higher than that. Incredible player, incredible playoff performer. He was making 9.25 million. He's on the last year of his deal. Reports were that this guy wanted to be like one of the highest paid players in the game. Whether that was $14 million, over $14 million, under $14 million, who knows the exact amount. But anyway, the Avalanche didn't want to pay him that much money, and they made the decision to trade him to the Carolina Hurricanes. And in return, they got Jack Drury, some draft picks, but obviously the big guy coming back is Martin Necas, who's a very good player in his own right. Currently signed to a 2-year deal for $6.5 million a year. So obviously not in the same, not in that same salary bracket as Mikko Rantanen. So what are your thoughts on this trade? Because I mean, my initial thoughts are I can't fucking believe this happened. I never thought I'd see the day that the Avalanche would break up McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar. Like it's just when you think of the Colorado Avalanche, this version of the Avalanche, those are the three players you think about. It's just wild to think that a team that just won a Stanley Cup recently has this absolute monster of a player who's huge, scores goals, performs in the playoffs, and they said, you know what? We don't want to pay you more than we're paying Nathan McKinnon, who's making 12.6 million a year. So we're going to strike while the iron's hot. We're going to trade you for who we think is a really good player in return in Martin Necas. I think the Hurricanes won this deal simply just by getting the best player. And we've talked about, for so long how the Hurricanes, to take that next step, they need guys like this. They need game breakers like this, something they've been sorely lacking over the years as far as they have made it in the playoffs. So those are kind of my initial thoughts on the trade. I just can't believe that the Avalanche actually dealt this guy.
Yeah, my thoughts on trades, they call them trade deadline deals or deals that are done somewhere around the deadline, is that okay, they're for certain groups. Like you always hear that a team, they always talk about a team that has a guy coming up as a UFA. But the team is either in a playoff spot or fighting for a playoff spot. To me, it's the way I always feel about it is like, no, they're not going to move them. It's just, it is what it is. Losing players in free agency is just part of it. Only if you can make your team actually better. And that's hard to do in the National Hockey League, right? Like, remember Van Riemsdyk, his last year? Oh, the Leafs should have traded Van Riemsdyk. It's like, he's good value, and we're not going to get something back that's going to make us better at that price. So like, no, we're going to ride it with JVR. But that's why it's kind of shocking on the way of Colorado, because you said it, Bruno. The best player in the deal was Rantanen. Necas is a good player, but Colorado got worse. Full stop. That's it. And I mean, you could talk about the cap room, this and that, but if I'm an Avalanche player, and McKinnon didn't look fucking happy. Did you see him in the locker room? How it totally caught him by surprise. He had no idea. I mean, whether that's fully true or not, who knows? But I don't know, man. Nate seems like a pretty straightforward guy, and he did not seem happy. It's a great move for Carolina. And like you said, Bruno, I mean, you that was always your rant. I remember about Carolina, and I would repeat it to people saying, yeah, they don't have the star power. Yeah, nice team, top to bottom, those names that you know, but really, you need the superstars in the playoffs. And they got their superstar. It's a nice piece. Do you think they're going to try to? I mean, they're going to try to re-sign him, but do you think there's any chance he signs in Carolina?
I think so. I think so. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they are going to be the team now that could actually sign him to an 8-year
8 years,
deal, right? So
right?
that extra year is always enticing.
Right.
What's interesting is that Rantanen actually came out today and said, quote, I was ready to take a significant discount from my market value. He said, we had some chats a couple days before, and then they traded me. That's what happened. That's why I didn't expect it. He then went on to say, I didn't know we were in a rush. That's what I felt. That's my honest opinion. It's business, and I understand they're trying to think what's best for them. So again, reports were that this guy wanted to be the highest paid player in the game or somewhere in that range. And I don't blame him. because he has the credentials to back it up. And he's basically like the next guy, right? It's like, who's the next free agent coming up? Are they one of the top players in the world? Yes. Are they going to be the highest paid player in the world? Pretty good chance they probably are. And then, okay, who's the next guy the following year who's an unrestricted free agent? And then they're the next highest paid player in the league. So clearly, I think this was a case of Colorado just setting an internal cap. And they said, I don't give a shit who you are. You are not getting paid more than Nathan MacKinnon, the best player on our team. The ceiling for our salary cap is 12.6 million. I don't give a shit who you are unless you're Connor McDavid. You're not getting more than 12.6. I think that's what basically the Avalanche are saying here. Because like what's interesting as well is that Cale Makar is going to be eligible for an extension in 2026. How much is he going to command?
Exactly. That to your point, there's no way if Makar wants says say 13, they're like, nope.
Yeah, and because I would argue like he should be paid. He should probably be the highest paid player in the sport.
Fucking right.
When he's eligible for an extension, right? And again, it's all timing. It doesn't mean that he is the best player in the league. It's all a timing thing here. So they clearly said, we don't want to pay you more than MacKinnon. We have to give Cale Makar a shitload of money. So let's get someone in return who is, again, not cheap like Necas. He has 1 year left on his deal at 6.5, and then he's going to need a raise. He's having a career year, over a point per game. He's a speedster, great offensive player. He's no Mikko Rantanen, but at least they got something in return. It's not like they got like fleeced here. Like I still think they're going to be good, but shit. Losing a guy like that, I mean, Hurricanes fans must be thrilled right now, especially pairing the two Finns together, Aho and Rantanen. Let's go, man. I really like this for Carolina.
Yeah, the Makar thing will be interesting. Does it hold? Is it a greater possibility? Number one, because there's more time in between, and you will really and truly see a higher cap when Makar's contract's being negotiated, and also the fact that he's a defenseman. That might help. That might help justify whatever they give him, because, I mean, Rantanen, and to his comment about I was willing to take less than market value. What's market value? Is market value what one team would have offered you to make you the highest paid player in the league? And how much of a haircut were you willing to take? I memean, if you had free agency, would he have been the highest paid player in the league? Probably. One team would have done it. So I don't know. It's just, it shows though, man, these guys, and here I am with a hockey podcast, being a big fan of a team. There's no loyalty anymore, man. Colorado could have signed him for 8 years. They could have given him a fuck ton of money. Not that much. I mean, it is a lot less. I mean, let's say, for example, if he would have signed for 12 and a half, and in free agency, he can get 13 and a half. Well, over 8 years, that's $8 million. So that's not insignificant, but that's worth it to him to leave a team that with those pieces always has a chance to win, and a city and all that. He's gone, man. It's sad, but that's the reality of the sport now. And there's always been movement, but we're surprised. I think most people are surprised at this move. You said it, Bruno. Makar, Rantanen, MacKinnon. That was the team. And it's shocking that it ended like this. He leaves. If he would have left in free agency, he would have left in free agency. To me, that's about money, and it happens. But to be traded, but I don't know if it's
to be traded mid-season when like they're good. It's not like they're the best team in the league right now, but it's like, you know, they're in their window to win a Stanley Cup, another Stanley Cup here, and they just traded away their third best player. Insane.
Is that move, Bruno? Do you look at it and more say, wow, that's balls, like as a compliment, that's balls to make that move and get something for him now? Or is it chickening out, saying we're not good enough to win?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think they have maybe admitted to themselves that, I mean, listen, they're going to make the playoffs. They're a good team, but they probably think like, okay, we're not like an elite team. And part of it was, you know, this is a good opportunity to get something in return, because if this really gets ugly in free agency and he walks for nothing, then this is going to be a disaster for us. So it's tough. Like, I never thought I'd see the day. Listen, the Lightning are the other team that's been doing this. I mean, you could say even the Panthers as well, where they've kind of set like an internal cap where it's
Boston
like no one
did it.
Yeah, it's same with Boston. Although Boston, I think, like unintentionally did it, where
Yeah,
they signed
yeah,
all these guys before they became as good
yeah.
as they are. But like with the Lightning, like no one makes over $9.5 million, right? They even drew the line at Stamkos. So like, listen, you're an aging player. We love you, longtime captain. Too bad we're not paying you what you want in free agency. I think the Avalanche. You know what I think happened here, Lepore? They didn't want to pull a Leafs. I think that's what this is because you have McKinnon making 12.6. Let's say Rantanen wanted 13.5 or 14 million. Then you have Makar who's going to want the exact same thing. So then you're in a position where you're paying three guys, what, 36, 35 to 36 million dollars. I don't think they wanted to go down that road, and they said let's avoid this at all costs because we've seen what's happened to a team like Toronto. And guess what? The Leafs might be in this exact situation because Mitch Marner is going to probably want like $13 million. I don't know if
Yeah.
the Leafs are going to end up paying him that, but that's why we always got to put a Leafs spin on this. Like, how do you think this now affects the Marner situation? Like, should the Leafs look at this and say, hold on a second, this team that just won a Stanley Cup, one of the model franchises in the league, just traded away one of their best players for basically salary cap reasons. Are they onto something here? Like, should we be maybe following a similar path here with Mitch Marner?
Yeah, I don't know, Bruno, with the cap where it's at and the cap going up, to give three guys that kind of money, like we're gonna see it. And it's a breath of fresh air for Leafs fans because it's like, oh yeah, other players are gonna get this kind of money. It's not just the Leafs that were fucked that are gonna get fucked by it. It's just, okay, no, this is the reality now. And it's insane, Bruno. Like people don't I think people forget where the contracts were headed before COVID. I was talking to my buddy who's a huge Habs fan, and I was saying PK Subban retired what 2 years ago, and he retired at the end of his deal. He was making what 9.5, so he signed that deal 10 years ago. He was making what Makar makes now. 10 years ago, he signed that deal. The cap was supposed to go up, man. John Tavares, and I might not get the numbers exactly correct. I'm pretty sure the number was the summer he came to Toronto, the cap went up 4 million. In his 7 years in Toronto, it went up like 3.5 million. It's like, well, no, it was supposed to go up. So I don't know if it's a matter of them not wanting to commit like that. As far as Marner goes, Bruno, would you make that trade if you were Toronto right now? If you could get Marner for Necas?
Listen, I don't think I would.
No.
I've been in the camp, and again, this is me coming from like a salary cap perspective. Like clearly, Mitch Marner is a better player than Martin Necas. I don't think anyone could say otherwise. It's not like Martin Necas has done anything phenomenal in the playoffs either. Um, I've been in the camp of you need to re-sign Mitch Marner, and you've all seen how well he's been playing this season. He's been amazing this season. But the other part of me says, holy shit, man, you have all of these model franchises being very ruthless with their decision making. You have the Lightning doing it, you have the Avalanche doing it. I don't even want to get started on the Florida Panthers, who somehow signed Sam Reinhart for nothing coming off a 55 plus goal season. That was insane. But anyway, like a part of me is thinking, fuck, man, the Leafs are going to be in this same situation where they're now kind of forced. And I guess you're never forced. You could always get out of something. You'd always make a trade. But now you're kind of forced to pay Marner close to what he wants here. So now you're going to have Marner and Matthews on the books for, let's call it 25 to 26 million. You added Nylander's deal. That's now like $37 million. Tavares is going to be off the books. Who knows if he's going to be back? So you have basically three guys tied up for 37 million. Like,
Yeah.
can you actually build a team? Because clearly the Leafs have proven that you can't really build a great like Stanley Cup slam dunk Stanley Cup team around these guys when the salary cap, when they're eating up this much cap. So that's what still kind of worries me in the back of my head. As much as I love Mitch Marner and as much as I think the Leafs should re-sign him to an 8-year contract.
Yeah. See, and this is not me trying to completely justify it. It's just pointing out that the cap is going to go up now. So it's not about, we still freak out at that thing. Oh my God, three guys, it's like 35 million or 36 million. But if the cap's 100 million, it's like, well, That's not as bad as it once was, or say a few years ago. As far as it goes with Marner and the contract, you just talked about, Colorado having an internal cap thing. No one's making more than Nate. Is Marner not allowed? I say allowed. He can do whatever he wants, but you know what I mean, Bruno. If he goes to the Leafs and says, "Look, I want Austin, or even a little bit more than what Austin is making, but I'll sign for 8." See, to me, that's the different thing here. Is that if he signs for, say, 13.5, but it's 8 years.
Yeah, you could argue that that's actually a deal for the Leafs.
That's a deal based on what Matthews is going to sign for in 4 years. So I think that's where it's a little tricky for Toronto and for Marner's negotiations. Because if Toronto, if Marner said, "Okay, I want 13.5 times 8," and they say, "Well, no one makes more than Austin," it's like, yeah, but guys, he signed a 4-year deal.
But see, Lepore, here's where the Leafs have been doing it different than every other team. I agree with you. That all makes sense. But none of these other fucking teams are doing the same thing. They're all standing firm. They're all saying, "Screw you. We're not paying you more than our best player." It's happening all across the league. The Leafs are the one team that seem to be breaking all these rules, even with Matthews signing his 4-year deal. You know,
yeah,
how pissed off I was at the time, right? Like, so I get it. What you're saying is completely logical. It actually makes a ton of sense. If you spread out Marner's cap hit over 8 years, you could argue that it's a slam dunk win for the Leafs. But on the other hand, no other team around the league is doing this. No other team is like, "All right, here you go. Take whatever you want. You're such a great player. Here's your $13-14 million." Like, no one's doing it except the Leafs. So that's where I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I'm torn on this. And I would like to see the Leafs kind of take a stand, because we saw Dubas just get taken to town by all these guys in their first negotiations. So that's where I'm still torn.
Yeah. You nailed it, Bruno. To me, it starts with Matthews' 4-year deal. It's giving the guy everything. So what if Marner comes and says, "Okay, I'll do 13 flat, but 4 years or 5 years." Do you entertain that?
Oh man, no. Like, I was pissed when Matthews signed a 4-year deal. If Marner's going to commit here, I want an 8-year commitment. Like, no more of these shenanigans, man. I don't want any.
Is there not, here I am like scratching my head, freaking out, stressing out about this situation. How I said before, how there's no loyalty anymore, how these guys move, guys you think that are lifetime of a team, because we grew up with guys like Steve Yzerman and Mario Lemieux and Joe Sakic. Like that's gone. Everyone knows that's gone. But this Marner thing, okay, I understand. Like, I understand. We're talking about money here. You're a professional. You're supposed to get paid. But is there any fraction of this, any small fraction of this, about, saying to yourself, "Fuck, I really want to be loved by the city and the fans"? Zero.
There's zero from him. That's what's so frustrating. Zero from any of these guys, Lepore. Even fucking Matthews, for that matter.
Like, maybe I can't. I'm not in that situation, and these guys have egos and there's agents or whatever. But to make a little less money and people be like, "Wow." Like, people, it's funny the timing about what I'm going to say, but when Riley signed, Leafs fans were like, fucking right. Like, he could have got more.
Yeah, he was the one guy who was like, "You know what? I'm not going to take the Leafs to the woodshed here. Yeah. I'm going to sign for, what's a very reasonable number considering the type of player I am." You know what? Yeah. You could say Riley's not playing well right now. He's kind of having a down season, whatever. But I think for the most part, that guy has returned value, especially how good he's been in the playoffs. So yeah, fucking Morgan Riley, the one guy who's not taking this team to the fucking woodshed.
Yeah. And to me, like, I don't, that, and especially Mitch Marner, people say, "Oh, Matthews, Arizona kid, doesn't give a flying fuck." Marner, who grew up the Gilmore fan from Toronto. He lives in Toronto, has his cottage in the Muskokas. I'm sure he's going to retire, stay in Toronto. Do you not just want to be fucking loved? And that small possibility, if you take less money, you have a better chance to fucking win something. And if you do win something, the money will be insane.
And that's what these guys, I think, don't understand.
That's to me, like, is there not that? It's like almost like the risk reward and like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the calculated risk of like, I'll take $1 million or two less, but if we fucking win a cup for the next 50 years, I'm going to make up that money in books, autograph memorabilia, appearances.
Wendell Clark and Doug Gilmour are gods in this city, and they did fucking nothing.
I know.
Both of them, but they won fuck all. And
yeah,
absolute gods. You would think Doug Gilmour and Wendell Clark both won 7 Stanley Cups as Toronto Maple Leafs. Literally, they are treated like that on a daily basis in this city. And can you imagine Matthews and Marner and Nylander actually win a cup? What would happen just the rest of their lives? All the money that would just pour in from winning one cup. It's crazy to me that stuff like that doesn't work into their decision-making process.
Yeah, and again, I call it a calculated risk. And there's no finite number on how much that is worth. But also, it's funny. Yeah, there's no finite number on winning a Stanley Cup because there's not. But to ask the player, and like now I'm going fantasy world, I mean, total fanboy. Mitch, if you want 13.5. Okay, you want 13.5. If you take 12.5, you will win a cup. Would he do it?
Probably not.
Yeah. Where are we, man? Where are we? I mean,
it's truly unbelievable. I mean,
sports
we'll see where Marner's head is at, and I think I would like to think this situation is going to sort itself out sooner rather than later, but you never know. He might just take this thing straight to free agency. Who the hell knows what's going on in that Marner camp right now? But when the time comes, we're going to have wall-to-wall coverage of that situation. But we wanted to get into one more topic on the show. I think, Lepore, we're going to save it for our next episode because we're just kind of running out of time here. We'll get into
Bruno,
it.
I just texted you saying we'll wrap it up now.
And I literally just saw your text come through. We were going to talk about the Eastern Conference playoff race. We will get into that conversation during episode 161. But Lepore, before we wrap things up here, any final thoughts?
The Leafs, man. I don't know. We've done a pretty good job all season, and we didn't talk about this. We've done a pretty good job all season of avoiding disaster during injury. Watching the game against the Sens, and it's not an excuse, Sens fans, why we lost. I thought we played like shit, and sure, you won. Congratulations. But I really felt like, this team's missing guys. And it's funny. I caught myself, we'd have perimeter shots. And I asked myself, why the fuck is there no traffic? Where the fuck is the traffic in front of the net? And then I'm like, oh, wait, there's no Tavares, Nyes, or even Pacioretty. Like, so put one per line of the guy who would be in front of the net. So I really hope they can kind of keep chugging along if they have to deal with these injuries. And I think Tavares skated today for the first time, where they said he's looking pretty good, maybe back for next week. Stoller should be back soon. Nye should be back soon. And we have a slow week. We play 2 good teams. We play Minnesota and Edmonton. But to me, that's kind of where my head's been at lately. Like, fuck, number one, can we just get healthy once? And also, can we still keep chugging along if we're not?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. This team, when any of their big guys are out of the lineup, and then you add any of like the next tier of players, if like a Matthew Nyes is out of the lineup as well, like it really shows, the lack of depth on this team. It kind of is what it is. When you live in a salary cap world like this and your top guys are getting paid all that money, it shows. So yeah, it's hard to judge this team too much. They're playing at a 102-point pace. I still don't love the underlying numbers, as I've talked about on the last 3 shows. To me, they're still kind of like I don't want to call them like just a middle of the pack mediocre team, but I'm not loving what I'm seeing. But in saying that, at the time of recording, they are first place in their division and on pace for 102 points. So not too much to complain about, but that is going to do it for episode 160 of the Gluttons For Punishment podcast. A very passionate episode getting into that convo about Mikko Rantanen and Mitch Marner. Please leave your thoughts down below. I want to hear your take on that situation. Should the Leafs pull a Colorado and really stand firm on the Mitch Marner situation? Let us know your thoughts. As always, if you enjoyed the show, whether you're a first-time listener or long-time listener, please consider leaving a 5-star rating and review on either Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. Go Leafs, go, baby. And we will chat very, very soon.
Thanks, everyone.